You're building your own cage every morning, those precious routines you're so proud of. That perfect schedule you've mastered. It's not discipline. It's surrender. How long have you been fooling yourself? By the end of this, you'll know exactly why your organized life is actually chaos in disguise, and how the Stoics discovered true freedom lives in the space between stimulus and response, not in the rigid patterns you mistake for control. Think about yesterday. You woke up at the same time. Coffee first, then checking your phone. Same breakfast. Same route to work. Same evening ritual. You call this discipline. You tell yourself you're in control because you've eliminated variables. But here's what you don't see. You've eliminated choice itself. Aurelius Maximus once told me something that shattered everything I believed about routine. Those amber eyes, weathered by decades of observation, looked right through my carefully constructed schedule. He said, "The man who needs ritual to function has forgotten how to think." I was offended. My routines made me productive. They eliminated decision fatigue. They were efficient. But efficiency isn't control. It's the opposite. Every morning routine you've automated is a decision you stopped making. Every habit you've locked into place is a moment where you've chosen predictability over presence. You think you're being disciplined, but discipline requires conscious choice. What you're doing is sleepwalking through a life you designed once and never questioned again. The real trap isn't that your routines are bad. It's that you've confused external structure with internal mastery. You've built a perfect system for avoiding the fundamental Stoic challenge, responding consciously to each moment as it actually is. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Notice he didn't say in your way of scheduling or in your way of organizing. Your way of thinking. Present moment awareness. Conscious response. But consciousness is uncomfortable. It's easier to default to routine than to evaluate whether this morning actually calls for the same response as yesterday morning. It's easier to follow your predetermined schedule than to ask what this day needs from you. Your routines aren't controlling your environment. They're controlling you. Marcus Aurelius discovered this the hard way. Here was someone who had built the perfect life system. Every hour planned. Every habit optimized, every variable controlled. That sharp jawline was set with the confidence of someone who had figured it out. Until the day his system couldn't handle reality, his carefully planned morning was interrupted by a family emergency. His optimized evening routine was shattered by an unexpected opportunity. His controlled environment became uncontrollable, and instead of adapting, he broke. Because he had trained himself to follow patterns, not to think. The Stoics called this preferred indifference. External circumstances we might prefer, but which ultimately exist outside our control. Your routine is a preferred indifferent. You prefer that mornings go a certain way, but you don't control whether they will. When you become attached to that preference, when you need it to function, you've handed your peace over to circumstances. True Stoic discipline isn't about creating the perfect external structure. It's about developing the internal capacity to respond wisely regardless of structure. It's about being so clear about your principles, so grounded in your values, that you can navigate any situation without needing familiar patterns to guide you. What if tomorrow you woke up and asked a different question? Not, "What's on my schedule?" but "What does this day require of me?" Not, "How do I stick to my routine?" but "How do I respond to what's actually happening?" This isn't about abandoning all structure. It's about holding structure lightly, using routines as tools when they serve you, and setting them aside when they don't. The difference between a wise person and a habituated person is that the wise person chooses their response fresh each moment, while the habituated person defaults to yesterday's choice. Seneca practiced this. He would deliberately interrupt his own routines to maintain his capacity for conscious choice. He'd skip meals to remember he could. He'd change his travel plans to practice adaptation. He'd give up luxuries periodically to ensure he wasn't dependent on them. Not because structure was bad, but because attachment to structure was dangerous. Your morning routine isn't evil. Your organized schedule isn't wrong, but your need for them, your identity as someone whose life is together, because your external patterns are consistent. That's the prison. You've become dependent on predictability for peace of mind, when peace of mind should be independent of circumstances. Real freedom looks different. It looks like being equally centered whether your morning goes according to plan or gets completely disrupted. It looks like finding the same clarity in chaos that you find in order. It looks like being so internally structured by principles that external structure becomes optional. Marcus Aurelius learned to hold his systems lightly. He kept the routines that genuinely served his goals and released the ones that had become emotional crutches. That angular jawline softened with the relief of someone who no longer needed perfect conditions to access his best self. The path forward isn't to destroy your routines. It's to practice conscious choice within them. Tomorrow morning, pause before your first habit. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it serves me today or because I did it yesterday? Choose consciously. Even if you make the same choice, make it fresh. This is how you transform organized imprisonment into true discipline. This is how you reclaim the space between what happens to you and how you respond. This is how you discover that real control was never about controlling circumstances. It was about maintaining choice regardless of circumstances. The bars of your routine prison aren't locked from the outside. You built them, you maintain them, and you can choose differently. The next step changes everything.